Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
Big shout out to Isaac Mather for the new podcast intro. You can check Isaac's music out on all socials or directly at isaacmathermusic.com. Yeah, we were just saying, I mean, I think the most aggressive homeless I saw were in Seattle.
Oh,
Like,
okay. I've never been there. Yeah.
There was a tent literally on the side. Like, I had to walk in the road instead of the sidewalk
Wow. Yeah.
to get around somebody.
I think the most recent may have been for us, Austin, maybe. This was a couple of years ago, though. I think there's
Really
been done a lot to help the situation since then. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to, but been a lot of places, cities where there's just a tremendous number of homeless.
it's
Austin's
crazy.
the one that stands out the most, but that stands out in a world where that's like saying, it's not like, oh yeah, it stands out. It's like they all would stand out compared to what I would have said 10 years ago.
Right.
All the places I've been, Austin just happened to stand out much more than some of the others. Oh man, I remember we were there driving in to town in the city. We were taking an Uber from the airport and we were at a red light and there was fights going on. I mean, it was like, should we even stay here? That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, it's by design. Like, they don't want to be off the streets either. Like, if you try talking to them or they're on something, they're mentally ill. We just ignore that. Because I've seen people drop meals off to some homeless people and they just kick it aside. Like, they have a lot of their needs taken care of, and I know I'm stereotyping, but
Well, we got to talk in generalizations and anything, right, to some degree, and then
yeah,
you narrow your focus. But this idea that just because you were to say many of the homeless are mentally ill or have drug issues, and that's why they're on the street, and then the person comes in and goes, "Well, I know a guy who lost his job, and that's why." It's like, well,
yes,
the anecdotal, there's always a story. I call it. I won't say what I call it because not because it's a bad word, but because it references someone I went to high school with. But I'll tell you. I'll tell you why I call it that. I call it the so and so effect, and it's not even a criticism of this person. Back in 10th grade in high school, we had to take public speaking class in high school, and this particular kid who wasn't my friend and he wasn't not my friend. It's I just remember him giving this speech in public speaking, and I remember at the time going, "This is preposterous," and I remember, and I've always remembered it. So this particular kid gave a speech. The seatbelt laws were kind of new back then, if you'll remember. This would have been like 1991 ish, maybe. So seatbelt laws had come into existence. They've been in existence. You could fact check me on it. I wish we had one, but what year that was? And so it was still a topic that was being discussed. I'm pretty sure that it was a law. I frankly don't really remember when it wasn't. Yeah, you looking that up?
yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so he was giving this speech on why the seatbelt laws shouldn't be a law. It should be up to the individual, which I think is a fair argument. Um, if that's one you want to make, I certainly can look at the trade-offs. But his speech revolved around the fact that his aunt and uncle, I believe, got in a car accident, and they neither one of them had a seatbelt on, and they both survived. And according to him, the officer who came on the scene had said, had you had your seatbelts on, you would be dead. Now, I don't recall why. The details don't matter.
Right.
What the point is, he was making the argument, we shouldn't wear a seatbelt because my aunt and uncle got in a car accident. They didn't die. and they didn't have seatbelts on. And according to this officer, had they had their seatbelts on, they'd be dead. Well, that very well may be true. I don't know. Let's give him his due and say we believe that's true. Well, that doesn't mean it's better not to wear a seatbelt. I think statistically, you're much better wearing seatbelts.
Right.
Okay, so I call this when we talk in generalities and someone comes in and they go, "Well, I know a person, the so and so effect," and again, I don't want to name this person because it's not worth. I'm not criticizing him over it. It's silly to even name him. But I call that like within my family and such. My brothers went to high school with us; they know who he is, that kind of thing. So my point being is, you're like, I don't want to talk, or I know there's, or however you said it, basically, we have to talk in generalities, right?
Right.
We have to go, hey, it's better to, I don't know, and I'm not even sure get a flu shot than not. I have no opinion on that, so don't.
Right.
But my point is, like, yeah, most people homeless, from everything I've read and seen, are homeless because of mental illness, drug abuse, and if they do go, the drug abusers, from what I've seen, they do go inside, they have to follow certain rules that will prevent them from using, and they don't want to do that. And I certainly can see why they would not want to if they're not, if they're in that position. So shouldn't that be the thing we're trying to it's pillar number one, Paul. It's truth. It's like, yeah, that's the biggest problem. If we want to tackle this homeless issue, shouldn't we start with the majority issue that we could not, there's someone on the streets because of some random issue. Well, let's handle that because it sounds better. We don't want to upset people and talk about the truth. We talk about the 90% of people who are out on the street. Let's ignore that reason because it might hurt someone's feelings. And far too often, that's what we're doing, not only on that issue, but a variety of other ones.
You made me think of a book I usually have my students read called Scratch Beginnings. This kid was sitting in a college class, Adam Shepard, he wrote the book, and he had to read the book Nickel and Dimed, how this lady tries to be a waitress and does various minimum wage jobs and documents them. And she says the American dream's dead because you can't live off minimum wage. And as he's reading the book, he's kind of like, bullshit. Like, she's not saving her money. She's like trying to stay at a fancy hotel. Like, she's not budgeting. So he took $25 in a duffel bag and then basically picked a random city on the map. And I think he picked Charleston, South Carolina. So he showed up there. This is after he graduated college, played basketball, went to college. He said in a year he was going to have $5,000, place to live, and a car. So couldn't tell anybody he was college educated. So
Okay, got it.
for the first 70 days, well, he stayed in a homeless shelter because it was free.
Okay.
And then he would do odd jobs and save money. And he couldn't find a job at first because he realized on the resume or whatever he was filling out, he was putting a homeless shelter address. And like, who's going to hire a guy from a homeless shelter? But he didn't realize it. The drug addict friend he met told him that. He goes, listen, you idiot. So the point, and then he's like, well, why don't you have a job? And it was, I don't want to ruin the book, but he was kind of, a lot of these the generalization is a lot of homeless people play the system. They go into the shelters when they need to.
Okay.
They don't want to play by the rules all the time, like being clean, right? Bringing certain items in, and then they go back out, and then it's like a revolving door. And he figured out a whole subculture. I don't want to give away if he was able to do it or not, but it's a really cool book.
What's the book?
It's called Scratch Beginnings. It's me $25 in the search for the American dream.
Interesting. I want to read that.
And I'm not saying it like so. And then it's funny because in English class that my students go to, they read the Nickel and Dime book. And when they come in and start complaining about it, I give them the Scratch Beginnings book. And if they don't complain about it, I give them the Scratch Beginnings book. Like, here's two completely different perspectives about the American dream.
Yeah.
And one kind of has more rules attached and one's completely free and innovative. And guess which one wins, right? I mean, it's just the way it goes.
Paul, I was talking to my class last week, and I said to them, it was the beginning of the class, beginning of the semester, and I was talking about it's a sports marketing class that I'm teaching, and so it's got nothing to do theoretically with this kind of discussion, but class has everything to do with this kind of discussion, in my opinion, in a college environment. There's no holds barred as far as I'm concerned, and things we can discuss, and we started talk. My philosophy in the class is I don't care about your grade. I don't want you to focus on your grade. This is just in general. I want you to get what you can get out of this course. I want you to leave better. I want you to, there's certain things you should try to achieve, but I want you to leave better, and because I want you to have a good life is what I want for everyone in that class. I just want them to have a better life than they otherwise would have had. And that's gonna, that comes with a lot of there's a lot of ways I think that can do that are better than others. And I had Paul talking about the pillars, because the four pillars are about good choices. And so, your life will be the choices. And one of the things they say is, like, I don't care about where you started. I don't in life. I don't care about any of these other outside factors that you can't control. It's all about the choices you make and what you're going to do with those choices. And let's take two students. You start with this idea that it's all on me, and I've got to take control, and I've got to be responsible. And then another student can go, hey, like, everything that happens isn't my fault, and think life's not fair. And I go, you can choose either one of those, but I'll see you both at the finish line. And I'll see who had a better life. And I believe that with all my heart, that just like, you can complain, you can do it one way where woe is me, or you can do it the other way, which is, hey, I gotta take control. I gotta figure things out. I gotta do what works in the real world. And I know what's gonna work. I know what one's gonna quote unquote win in the end. And that's kind of what you're saying.
Well, it's funny. I feel I fail the most in the classroom when after all we do, kids just take the easy route and go to the school that's easiest and fits their vision, and regardless of how much they're going to owe, they just go anyways. Like, I feel I fail.
The college, you mean?
Yeah, go to community college first. Take a year off and work first. Like, I'm not saying you can't get there, but maybe it's just because your situation right now in life, maybe you shouldn't go there 4 years and take out all that money. But no, they all just have a job that'll pay all that off. Maybe because they're out there. I'm not saying you can't, but it limits your options, because you're gonna have to have that job, and you're gonna have to stay there, and you become the hamster on the wheel, or you get caught up in the rat race. I had a student reach out that didn't get into my program last week, or a year ago. And I always tell them when I meet with them, listen, doesn't mean I can't help you. Doesn't mean if you ever need any help, I'm not there, whatever. Well, he reached out, and instead of going to college, when his brother started a business last year, right when they got out, well, it was kind of during high school, landscaping. Then they got into odd construction jobs like concrete work, bought a few machines. And I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. And this person gave up college and maybe even the chance to play a sport in college, because he was just so enamored by how he can go to work and make money. And he in his head, he kind of wants to see where he's going to be 4 years from now compared to his friends that went to college for 4 years.
Love it.
He asked me a question. I'm going to tell you what I told him, and then you tell me where I'm right or wrong, or what you're going to add to it. And then we'll actually get into the bigger part of the podcast. I had a theme today. He's like, well, he met with Craig Southern and actually did a fence for Craig. He started listening to a lot of our podcasts, and he's going to meet you too in the future. I already booked you. Sorry. So,
sounds like a person I want to meet.
Yeah. And, and got some inspiration, said a couple things. It's funny when you talk to somebody that actually says a few quotes that you almost don't even remember saying on the podcast sometimes. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good one, wasn't it? But he goes, what do I do next? They have some equipment that they're able to keep at somebody's building, so they don't, like, they live at home to save money, have equipment. In the wintertime, they both have other jobs, like early morning to mid morning, so they can have some cash still, and then prep, plan, and do smaller winter jobs, right? And
Okay.
he asked what they should do next, and I said at some point, well, first of all, I go, do you invest? And he goes, well, yeah, we keep buying income producing assets. And I go, good, because you wouldn't like, I'm an investment guy, and with what you're doing, it wouldn't help you to just put money in an IRA right now. It would, like, I'm not saying you couldn't, but you
Right.
need
Of
that
course you could.
money to buy things to make money.
Right. You could put that money into a IRA, and in
Yeah.
35 years you're gonna have a lot of money there, right? You're gonna have a good a good retirement. I hate that word. A good
Right.
whatever. You're gonna have a
Good
chunk there.
base.
Right.
Yeah.
But what you won't be able to do if you put that money there is buy the income producing assets that put the whole thing on the rocket ship, on blast,
Right.
to allow in 15 years where you can go, I'm just cashing all this out for 20 million today or whatever and I don't ever, if you get in the IRA situation, oftentimes you're playing the long game, which means you dramatically
Right.
limit your choices and your ability to really be free. So I agree with you.
And again, doing all of that's okay. But I said in your case, you're working in the winter to make extra money. You're putting it all back in the business. That's fine. You're not even quite 19 yet. It's no big deal. Eventually, I said you should get some land and put up a building to put your machines in, and then when you have some equity on that building, you'll be able to purchase more things. Because he was talking about real estate. So at some point, you're going to need a building. I guess you don't have to build it either, but it's okay. You need to buy some real estate at some point and get some equity through that. And they don't right now. A lot of their business is tied up to them doing the work. I said you got to find someone that's a good worker that you can trust that probably doesn't have any aspirations of owning a business. There's a lot of people out there. And
Most
then
of them.
eventually they become the head, the foreman, the CEO of your landscape division. They do that. Now it just frees you and your brother and whoever up to do more concrete work, to do more fencing, to worry about the apartments. And then if you get a few apartments, maybe end up hiring somebody to be the fixer upper guy for that or sub it out. But right now you have X amount of lawns, and I know you're doing some construction work small, but you just don't have the time to do it all. You need to have somebody work with you or for you, but that's not easy. So tell me what I said right or where I went wrong or what you would tell them.
No, I mean, first of all, I don't think you and I can do anything for someone like that other than continue to help cheer them along, right? I mean, someone like that, they're just already on
Right.
the way. They're just. I mean, unless something goes haywire with their health, or God forbid, something terrible like that. Like this person with just that kind of. Paul, how simple. Like what is what's not complicated, right? That's pretty straightforward and simple stuff. Now, if you ask me to go do concrete work or landscaping, that would be misery to me. I would not be happy doing it. I'm not good with my hands and things like that. I probably could get better if I practice like anyone else, but that's not the path I would want to take
Right.
because I wouldn't enjoy it. But there's plenty of people who would, and there's this person is on their way to free financial and lifestyle freedom that the person who's a junior in college right now has no concept of, has no idea it can happen. It is not even working for that. They're working for a job. They're trying to get grades to go get a job someday, so that so they can be a cog in the machine. And that versus what this person's story is, they're so different that it's almost not fair to even talk about them in the same conversation. Although you have to compare and contrast them, but this person needs to. If I were advising this person, I would be telling this person to, number one, I don't know enough details on revenue, number of jobs, that kind of
Right.
stuff. but what I'd be doing is I would be selling and driving in as much revenue and sales as humanly possible through my own time. Is this person have a partner like the brother? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. And he gave me his numbers. I mean, he's probably going to listen to this. The person's going to know exactly who I'm talking about,
Yeah,
and
good.
but that's why I want you to meet him, because he has a good grasp on numbers too, which you will love.
Which is essential for any long-term success.
Yeah.
But I would be doing as much as we can internally and driving as much revenue as we can on our own sweat equity, and then be looking to add, like you said, the person I'd be looking to add would be the doers, the landscapers, the concrete people, whatever type of work they do. Um, so that I could expand my revenue. I could expand my business. I wouldn't be looking for bookkeepers and accounting people
Right.
and someone to so I the only people I'd be hiring in a position like this is revenue producers. And then I'd be taking my time and exchanging it to try to grow the business, get more accounts, get more customers essentially. And but long term I'd be looking at, I mean, I wouldn't be so hung up on owning my own, you know, um, warehouse or whatever to store my stuff. Now, that's a path, but you
Okay.
could rent one too. And I might, but like here's what I'm getting at. If I got to build something or buy something for $500,000, well, I'm gonna have to put 100 grand down. But if I rent it, I'm gonna have to put 1 month's rent down. You
Good
know,
point.
would I be better off taking that 100 grand and putting it into equipment that makes me money, another, lawnmower, another, et cetera, et cetera. That's probably what I'd do. I wouldn't get so caught up into owning the real. I'd take that 100 grand if I had it, and I'd buy $500,000 worth of apartments or things I could rent out to someone. Or if I'm buying that warehouse, I'm going to make sure that half of it's mine, the other half I can rent out. Like I want an income producing asset. I want something that's driving revenue for me. So I'd much rather and then in 2 years you could leverage those 5 properties you bought or 4 properties you bought or 3 properties you bought. You could leverage the equity out of those, and so now you're driving cash. Someone else is paying it off for you. You should be making a profit in addition. I could leverage that money, those assets, and then take money out and buy my warehouse in 3 or 5 years or whatever off of that equity that I have my tenants paying. And now I could pull 100 grand, from somewhere, not out of my pocket, but from some other asset. It would be multiple assets. It sounds like it, and I'd leverage that into this warehouse or whatever. But I wouldn't just take 100 grand, buy a warehouse, and then go, okay, now I don't have to pay my $2,500 a month in rent or whatever it is. That's too slow for me. I would buy income producing assets, use that cash to help my business, to help my life, invest that cash, and then leverage that equity in a couple of years to then get my warehouse or whatever it is I might need. So that would be what I would be looking at and how I'd advise a person.
Well, good, because I'm sure he's going to be listening to this. And I told him it's not really advice, because ever since we had Carol Sanford on the second time, I don't give advice. I made it clear this is the path I would take. But
Yeah.
but and that serious, like, that was life changing. Like, you can't tell people what to do, right? They're going to do it. And two things: the fact that he knew he wanted to buy assets instead of just invest, I thought was very important, because investing is just another tool. I think of investing as the 9 to 5er that doesn't have time or want time for any other side income. So they have to grow their money somehow, right? And
Yep.
let's face it, it's not in a savings account or a CD. So then you look at those tools. Now, it's better if you have enough capital to do both. But if you had to choose and you're working on a business, then you need to put it all back in the business. So, uh,
Yeah.
but it
If you
blows my,
want to go
no, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you want to, if your plan is to have a job for the next 40 years, investing's fine.
Yeah.
The problem with that is you might think that at 22 or 25 that that's what you're gonna. But I've just had far too many conversations with people at 35 and 40 who go, oh my God, how much longer? I had one this weekend actually. I had one this weekend with a guy who's making $250,000 a year at his job. 37 years old, wants out, can't give me out, can't stand it. I get them all the time. That's why I'm so passionate about it. But if the goal is, boy, at 37, 40, 45, I really want to be in a place where I can just do what I want when I want. I don't need to be rich. I don't need millions and millions of dollars. I just want to not be told what to do. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to enjoy my children. I want to be able, whatever. I want freedom. You can't do it at a job. It's just by definition alone, a job requires you to do something on someone else's timeline.
Right.
That alone means you're out of the game. So so you have to do that through businesses and buying income producing assets. And there's another thing out there right now that I'm kind of swaying back and forth on. It's like cash isn't worth anything anymore. Like I want my cash into hard assets, like commercial real estate or real estate in general or a business or whatever. Cash is just having a bunch of cash in an account. I mean, with the way we're printing money and what we're doing as a country, you know, cash ain't worth a whole lot. Cash isn't worth a lot in my mind. Because it can disappear like that due to inflation, we've seen what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. See, that's the hard part when you're 18. I mean, they, people want to be engineers. They want to be accountants. They want to go to school and get educated to have those jobs. And I'm okay with that, of course.
Yep.
But then you have to start investing. I mean, ideally it'd be great if you bought some rental properties on the side, right? But the reason I tell them to invest isn't so someday they can hit the end line when they're 50, 60 years old and stop working. I say you pump it in there because you're probably going to be very tired of your job at 30 or 40. Yeah. I don't know the year, but that point's going to come. Now you have this foundation to go pivot and do something else. Take that money and maybe you buy a bed and breakfast or apartment building or whatever. And you have the freedom, whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, to actually not rely on giving somebody your time for a paycheck. And then you can do things. But if you're working 9 to 5 and not saving, then you're never going to have that freedom or that choice.
Never. You're putting it all into the new iPhone and $7 Starbucks coffees, and that's where you're literally trading your life for the phone and the Starbucks of the world, right? Like because your life is your time, right? And ultimately, we were having this conversation in my class last week. We trade things for things we value more, right? We trade money for a coffee, for a computer, for whatever. We trade what we don't think about, but we do more than anything is we trade our time, which is our most important asset, for money. And then we take that money after it's been taxed through the nose, and we trade it for coffees and bags with logos on them and a new iPhone when our iPhone works perfectly well. And it's why what I love is behavioral economics, because economics says that you would never do things like that because it's irrational. Behavioral economics gets into that, but it's mind blowing to me. And then we turn around, we're 40, and we go, well, life didn't work out how I wanted. It's life's not fair. I can't afford this. I can't afford that. But you've spent first of all, you only work 35 or 40 hours a week. Don't this idea that 40 hours is this amazing. Oh my God, I worked that. I could go on and on about that. Like you want to get ahead, work 60. Okay. And when I say work, it doesn't mean you go into an office and you stand in a water cooler for 3 hours a day and gossip. Like work is productivity. Work is not showing up somewhere. Work is producing something. That's why I love sales so much. Work is production. It's not showing up and clocking in. It's actually doing something, performing, creating. So work more than 40 hours a week and then take that money you earn from your productivity and use it for something that will continue to produce for you, right? Capital can continue to produce. But Paul, not everyone should own an apartment, right, or commercial real estate or anything. Not everyone should do that. It takes work on it. You have to manage. You have to manage your tenants. You have to manage repairs. You have other things like that. Not everyone should do that. Don't ever anyone misinterpret that. I think everyone should own an apartment building. It's not true. It's just not true. Most people are better off putting into some investment, like you're talking, letting it grow over time, and then use that money to invest in something else to give them the freedom they may desire. But not everyone should own an apartment building. There's other ways to do it. But what everyone can do is not buy these $7 coffees, not buy the bag for $1,000 just because it has a Louis Vuitton logo or some nonsense on it, and spend more time working, educating themselves, spend their time doing that, and stop pretending they don't have time. Stop pretending that your life's so busy you don't have time to do these things. I've never met a person in my life, including myself, who didn't have time to read, to better themselves, and to spend more time producing. It's just not true. All right. Is there someone out there? Probably. I haven't met him yet. I haven't met this person yet. And including myself, when I was working full time, consulting, teaching for 5 different colleges, working on my PhD, while helping to raise my daughter. So all these things, I didn't ever watch television, and I never went on vacation for about 10 years. But I made my choices. I decided it was better. Those were better choices for me, and it turns out they were. But it's about production and then using that money and investing it in things and not wasting it on crap. And if you follow that formula, I'm confident you're going to be fine.
I want to get back to that time thing in a minute, but the person that makes $250,000, you should be able to get out of that unless you're not saving any of that.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. And what do you think happens? Number one, you make $250,000 in New York State, half of it's gone anyway. So now you're at 100. Now you're at 10 grand a month. And you know what? In most people's minds, I make $250,000 a year. I can afford that car. Let's buy this. Let's go here. Let's do that. Before you know it, like you said, it's the same problem most of us have had, and including myself. You start out, you just spend what you spend more than you earn, and you're right back. It doesn't matter how much you make because you're just spending it all.
I talked to past students, they get to be, a lot of them will contact me. They get to be 23, 24. They went to college. Maybe they have debt, maybe they don't, but they're not where they thought they'd be career-wise. They want to know what to do next.
Okay.
And I think about when you said you don't have time. I remember when I couldn't stand working in finance. I had to take classes after school, do the homework, not sleep a lot for about a year before I became an educator.
Yeah.
And now 28 years later, it's freed me up to do other things. But if I didn't sacrifice that stuff, saying I didn't have time, you're never going to change. So when someone young comes up to me, I'm like, well, just get a plan going and do it. And you'll look back and you won't even remember this time before that.
Right.
But a lot of people just wait and wait and wait. And now they're 35. It's too late. 50. It's too late. No, it's not.
No, it's not. Exactly. No, it's not.
When people are 50 and say they don't have time, I'm like, all right, think of everything a human being does from birth to 20.
Yep.
Right? So you at least have that much time left. So you have
Paul,
lots of time.
If you're 50, statistically, what now? You're going to live to like 85-ish? Now I think the average person in the United States lives to I think women are like 82 and men are like 79. But if you make it to 50, I think the averages go up because it takes out the deaths that would have happened prior to that. And all that'd be interesting. I've read stuff. But let's say you got 35 years left. Well, if you're so 50 to 85, well, from that's equivalent of when you were 15, that's 35 years to 50. Like there's a lot that happened. I'm 48, so it would be since I was 13. So from 13 to 48, that 35 years, like that's a that's a long time. I was 13. I don't remember when I was 13. I don't remember I don't remember. My point is, when you have just like you said, the person who's 50 goes, "Oh, I'm 50. It's too late." It's no, it's not. Get to pursue the things that you're passionate about. What's your alternative? Watch Jeopardy every night? I mean, I don't. What else are you doing? But
Now,
I think people compare themselves to other people, Paul, when they say they don't have time because they're watching their friends or their family, and they see that their friends and their family only work till, or their coworkers work till 5, and then the weekends, what do? They go to the bars and they hang out at home. They don't do anything. So they're thinking, well, I should be able to do all that stuff. How can I continue to do all that stuff and then still pursue these other things? And the fact of the matter is, you can't. You have to make a trade off.
yeah, I just had two people ask me this weekend, "Oh, when are you retiring?" And I go, "Well, I'm not retiring. I'll probably stop teaching as I know it in 3 years, but it's because I've got other things to do. This everybody I know that stops working ends up getting a job doing something. And I don't want a job doing something.
Something.
I've
Why don't
been
you do
working
what you
since
want?
COVID. I've been working since COVID to start building. So now I have more time to build.
Yeah.
So maybe it involves teaching because like you teach a class.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
it.
So
I
but
love
yeah, but I'm not going to retire. I'm going to stop doing what I do as everybody knows it in 3 years. So I have free time to do other things.
it. Yeah.
And boy, that's to me, that's really freeing because what I mean,
Well, what
we
else?
talk,
What else could you possibly want other than enough income coming in that you don't have to trade your time for, right? And that to be enough to live the life you want to live and do the things you want to do. What would be a better outcome for your life? I can't think of a better outcome. The outcome that I would wish for anyone is you have income coming in that you don't have to trade your time to earn, and that income's enough to allow you to do the things you want to do when you want to do them. That's essentially the dream as far as I'm concerned.
right.
I don't know what else I would wish for. I don't know what else is out there that would be better than that.
Well, it's again, we'll end. It's the common theme. Nobody start. Everybody doesn't start at the same place. Some
Nope.
people get it. Some people get it before others, and some people develop a plan and take action. Some people don't. The happiest people are the ones that at least try to change their situation.
Yes. Agreed.
And
Try. Take action.
it's neat. Like I said, we're not some national worldwide podcast yet, but the impact I've had a couple meetings and situations happen where we're influencing people or helping people or encouraging people in more ways than we know. So that's really
Include
cool.
including ourselves, right?
Yeah, well, I tell people also that's exactly why we do this because we used to talk on the phone probably half hour a week or 40 minutes
Yep.
a week. And now we're just kind of recording our conversations and adding guests sometimes. So,
Yeah, which has been so valuable. But those, people should have conversations like these, right? How many things have you or myself have we taken action on because you have conversations like these, or decided not to take action because of conversations like these? I was talking to a guy Thursday night, and who's it? In my opinion, ultra successful person who's been watching our podcast,
oh,
and
cool.
he was saying, he was just brought it up. He said, "Hey, I've been watching your podcast." I said, "Oh, great." I go, you know, he goes, "What do you like most about it?" I said, "Just meeting new people like we've done. And for me, I have to have an avenue to kind of bounce stuff and to get things out, to talk. I have to have this. And I don't have another avenue. Most of us don't. I don't really have another avenue in my life to get the things that roll around in my head over and over again and kind of out, Well, I mean, can't talk to my dog about it. I can talk to my wife about anything, but she doesn't want to have these long about these particular topics. We're not going to have these
Right.
long conversations. I mean, I'm not even going to have them with my friends per se, because a lot of my friends have some different interests, and that, which is fine. But this has been more therapeutic and helpful to me in terms of the necessity to do that, and the creativity comes from it that I can't necessarily quantify.
It's great. So, all right. I'm not sure what to call this because I hit record when we were talking about something completely different, but I'll
Well,
figure it out.
yeah, I'm not sure either on that one, but
I'll have our design team figure something out. So
there
it's
you
no
go.
big deal.
Let's put them to work.
Hey, see ya.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.